Not all toxic managers shout or threaten or issue demands. Some do, but many don't need to. There are two common ways that toxic managers get compliance from people. There is direct control and then evoked control. Both of them lead to the same outcome, you giving more to them than might be fair or reasonable. And the difference between these two types of control is how it happens, and how easy it is to spot once you know what to look for. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to tell the difference. If you want, go back and watch the previous videos, and I've got more to follow in this series. Today's video is about one thing. It's about how coercive control by a toxic manager shows up at work. You are not the problem, but you appear to have a problem if you're here watching these videos, and I want to try and help you solve this problem. It is hard to solve a problem if you don't know what you're dealing with. That is what my Toxic Manager Field Guide is all about. So let's start with the most obvious one, which is direct control. The easiest way to explain direct control is that there's obvious pressure with the specific consequences for you. The manager pushes you and other people openly. They might override boundaries, they might dismiss people's questions, they might even use threats, either spoken or implied, to force people's compliance. This means you might hear things like, if you can't get this done by 5 p.m, then maybe this job's not for you. If you can't work late tonight, maybe you're not as committed as I thought you were. This approach is unpleasant, but at least it's visible. You know you're being pressured. You can name it, you can see it, you can document it, you can even see that line being crossed. You are completely aware of what's happening to you. And because it is so obvious and so in your face, it often triggers this really strong stress response in you. It might be urgency or fear, or this feeling like if I don't do something fast, something bad's going to happen. So direct control relies on them enforcing their power in a very obvious way. And its sole purpose, it is designed to make you feel like if you refuse, it would be unsafe. But it is this second form of control that really makes people crazy. The second one is called evoked control or triggered control. So evoked control is indirect pressure that triggers your compliance. The toxic manager doesn't even have to issue you with directions or instructions. Instead, they just need to behave in ways that triggers that reaction in you. Things like guilt or urgency, fear of disapproval, fear of disappointing anyone, or this really strong urge to fix it. And here is the key thing for you to know. Your reaction then becomes their mechanism of control over you. They don't even need to say anything. They don't need to say, do my work. Instead, they just need to sigh heavily and then you jump in. They might say things like, no one supports me around here, and with that, of course, they imply that the team or even you are letting them down. So despite the fact that no formal requests or demands are made, you find yourself stepping in anyway, and you rearrange yourself and you overcommit. You might find yourself taking on things that were never even assigned to you. And of course, you do all of this for understandable reasons. You care. You don't want things to fail. You want things to work. Look, in some workplaces, stepping up and stabilizing things, these are rewarded. And that is how capable people keep things moving along. The thing is, with a toxic manager, your efforts become predictable. And it is your very predictability that they then exploit. So it's evoked control, this triggered control, that works especially well on conscientious, high-performing individuals, because we tend to pick up the things that other people miss. Things like tone changes, mood shifts, coldness or withdrawal, maybe passive disappointment, vague dissatisfaction. And because we care about getting things right, our bodies react before we've even had time to think about things, automatically. This is because our system is triggered to react in a specific way. And so you just find yourself doing things automatically, things like fixing things, overcompensating for things, overworking. And all of this is happening often without anyone having to ask us to do anything. And then you find yourself later on thinking things like, they didn't actually ask me to do that, so why am I so annoyed? If I chose to do that, how come I'm resentful? Maybe I'm just overreacting. And that is where the confusion sets in, because your response makes perfect sense to you. Because for many of us, these are old and habitual responses. We learned somewhere along the way that being helpful and agreeable and low maintenance smooths everything. And it's true. It does. And that is a strategy that can absolutely work in a healthy work environment. But in an unhealthy work environment, in a control situation with a toxic manager, it just leaves you unprotected. And I'm sorry to say, with my experience, that's most workplaces. So if there's nothing else you take from this video, please take this. Their moods are not your job. Your work is your job. So this evoked or triggered control often follows a predictable setup. Step 1. The manager performs in a very specific way. They might seem stressed or disorganized, even in trouble or under-resourced. So step 2, you step in. You steady things. You save the project. You become the problem solver. And with that, you absorb their pressure and their stress. And it feels good because you helped them. But step 3, the manager then starts avoiding ownership of the problem because you've stepped in and you've handled it. And then step 4 is the tone flips if you don't keep doing what they want you to do, because they expect for you to behave in the way that you've been trained. So now the manager who was overwhelmed yesterday becomes this sarcastic person you're dealing with today. It might even feel like they are punishing you, especially if you've tried to put boundaries in place or limit your involvement or even stop your involvement. And then step 5, you end up carrying both of your loads as well as this emotional component of their mood. So you're still saving and stabilizing things, but now you're doing it with this added component of being vigilant of their moods and their behaviors. And then over time, the message becomes really clear. When I save and stabilize things, everything is fine, but when I don't, I pay. I'm sorry to tell you, that isn't teamwork, that is triggered control. So how do you break this control pattern? So we can't control their behavior. We can't stop them from being who they are, unfortunately. But we can stop responding automatically with a yes. In fact, I call it that auto yes. And listen, our goal is not to confront them or fight with them. Our goal is to interrupt that pattern of ours. This means that when you are triggered, you notice it. You notice what you're thinking and what you're feeling in that moment. But you don't try and rush in there to fix it, and you don't try and rush in there to make yourself feel less uncomfortable. It's the age-old advice. You want to pause long enough to choose your response. Being able to do this is extremely valuable. So you want to ask yourself a couple of questions. Did they actually ask me to do this task or this project? If I wasn't asked, is this my responsibility to do it? Why did I step in if they didn't directly ask me to? And if I was being kind to myself, what would I be doing right now? And then respond with intention, not from some emotional auto reflex. And that could be something like, you might say, I can help with this, but you would need to help me prioritize what should come before something else. Or you could say something like, I could do that, but it would only have to be next week. If you wanted it sooner, then I would have to shift something else around and we would need to discuss that. This type of behavior from you is not being defensive. This is self-protection. Self-protection changes the game because it removes this reward that they receive from you. You just stop automatically absorbing their stress and their work into your workload. And yes, of course, none of this will be easy, but please try it anyway. Even if you only notice things to begin with and you try to change things later, that is already extremely valuable. That is how you start to protect yourself from a toxic manager, by being aware and identifying what is busy happening to you. So direct control is stressful, but it's easier to see and recognize. But evoked control is often way more draining because it turns your best traits against you. So your reliability, your empathy, your responsiveness, suddenly it becomes this mechanism that is used to keep you in overgiving. If you don't learn to spot it, you will start blaming yourself for being tired and exhausted and overwhelmed. You'll feel resentful and depleted without realizing what is causing it and why it keeps repeating. But please hear me, this is not your fault. I am not trying to blame you for any of this, but it is your responsibility to now protect yourself from it, especially now that you know all about how this control works. Once you can see the differences, you can respond with intention, and that is where you solve your problems. That is where your freedom begins. So if you want to understand what it is that you're dealing with, I have some tools that you can use. I would recommend that you get both. There's the Toxic Manager Audit, and then there's the Dirty Dozen worksheet. Download those from my website. The link is below. This is not about labeling people. This is about you understanding what pattern you're in so that you can recognize the problem and solve it. You want to stop wasting your effort and your time on doing something that doesn't benefit your well-being. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.